What a weekend.
There it is. It's depressing. I don't want to talk about it. I'm just going to turn this off now.
He's just enough to start it like, all right, peace.
Streak's alive. I'm going to go drown my sorrows in scotch. Thank you.
How many times I got to tell you guys this? We just got to be dead inside. Ed steered me wrong.
Yeah. You know, I was mostly dead through the season. And then they revived me with like this playoff berth. And then they go and win a game. Then they win another game. Like, okay, yeah, now I got some hope.
Teach you to have hope.
Uh-huh.
NFL's where hope goes to die. For a lot of people.
Yeah, that's dangerously real as a statement. All those practice squatters.
Just dead. DED dead. Kind of like some people's seasons.
Oh, yeah.
And careers. I don't know where you want to start. There's so much to talk about.
Oh, God. Yeah. You want to start with some coaches?
We can go right into games, coaches. You're steering this ship, sir.
Oh, we're gonna crash. But yeah, no, let's start there. I feel like it's pretty hot right now with a
lawsuit.
Brian Flores, and I'm sure there's gonna be other people jumping on board. Looks like there's been some tags of let's see, Vance Joseph.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like the Rooney Rule's been kind of one of those like running jokes about people say it's useless anyways. So it's a matter of time until we start seeing a few other people, I think, join in.
Yep.
Which, with how much of a joke it's been for so long, it really is the needed thing. So props to Flores for finally going, yeah, no, I'm going to call us that. Like, even if half his claims aren't true, I'm sure there's at least some truth to it.
I mean, yeah, even a few people have said, like, oh, of course, there's racism in the NFL. Like, these old rich white dudes, of course they're racist.
Yeah.
Like, are you going to look at me and tell me they're not?
I mean, especially with, like, John Gruden, Dan Snyder. And even before that, like, I mean, yes, it wasn't the NFL, but you had that one NBA owner who got totally busted for that. There's no way that this isn't a bigger problem than people let on. There's no way.
Yeah, it totally is. And what really sucks is that this might tank Flores' career as a head coach.
Yeah.
And maybe even a coach in general, because he's a really good coach. Like, he definitely deserves something to go somewhere.
I could see him end up in college after this. I could see something like that. Because while this is going to burn a lot of bridges in the NFL, the college, there's going to be plenty of schools who would give him a chance. And that's a good place to also go rebuild and work your way back up. Like, I think he could do it. But it also depends on how this shakes out.
Yeah, that's fair. I can see him do too. I mean, he's too much talent not to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's...
Yeah, it's a big call out.
Well, and especially like the people got named, I think, like, Belichick especially, that text message, that looks real bad.
I mean,
real bad.
I give it to Bill, like, yeah, everyone expected him to get a job, like, and I'm sure Bill not really thinking twice, like, I'm going to congratulate him. Of course it was him. Like,
well, no, he texted the wrong guy. He texted the wrong person.
Yeah, I know. He texted the wrong Brian.
Yeah, which is like...
But at the same time, like, you wouldn't really think twice, texting him, like, not really... Yeah, of course, Brian.
Yeah. Like, because they all know each other, like, coaches know coaches. But the fact that he texted congratulations to someone before the one minority actually got their, like, literally 9 hours before they were interviewed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bad look.
Yeah.
Like, because the only way he could do that is if the rumblings were from people he knew that, oh yeah, they're going with this guy, and if they haven't finished their interviews,
then they're just wasting his time and they're not actually honoring the Rooney Rule.
mm-hmm. Yeah, which that's why I think this could really blow up.
Oh yeah,
because they're gonna have to, like, I mean, I would imagine the Giants could have to provide some sort of evidence that they hadn't already made up their mind. And if not, it's going to get ugly real fast.
yeah. There's no real way to prove that. I mean, yeah, you could say, "Oh, Bill's just senile" or something, but it's like, no.
Yeah.
If he knew, that means you probably told someone, and they told him.
Mm-hmm. What's also interesting is apparently there's rumblings that had Flores gotten hired by the Giants, the Bills OC, I can't remember, like Sweeney, I believe, would have actually gone to go be his OC because he's not happy with McDermott, apparently.
Oh, dude, that would have been big.
Yeah.
They screwed up big time. Like,
right? If that rumor's true. So, not only could get ugly, it could really suck for him. It'd be hilarious.
I think it'd be hilarious. Wherever he ends up, yeah, that OC goes with him, and then they go on a tear.
Yeah, although I'm honestly with this, I don't see him getting the spot after this. Just because it's a legal minefield. Like, if you hire him, like, and I'm not saying that's right, but it's also like, ignoring all the other implications as an employer. If there is another employee with a active, very public lawsuit against their former employer, I'd be hesitant to bring him in for the exact same position until that lawsuit shakes out.
Yeah, that would make it rough, but at the same time, you gotta, I don't know, you gotta go for it. If you believe that your organization is, built well and has, a good code of conduct, then you shouldn't have an issue hiring him.
You shouldn't.
And that's probably going to bring this to light, though, too, because anyone who may be a little shady or, slap that racism card.
Like John Elway showing up to his interview drunk, allegedly.
Yeah. Allegedly. He showed up to everything drunk.
Yeah, no, like, again, him being drunk isn't what surprised me, because, I mean, if I was the one in charge of the Broncos right now, I'd be drinking pretty heavily with that mess.
Yeah. Got no QB, a hopefully good future head coach that you just hired.
A decent defense.
And you have a pretty good defense. We'll see how that goes, though, too, without Fangio.
That's true.
Because you're going to get a new DC. You did improve your odds if Rodgers decides to leave Lambeau.
Yeah.
Green Bay. Yeah, you got a familiar head coach, and the quarterback's coach is following him to be the offensive coordinator. So you have good odds.
Mm-hmm. On, like, I did see it, and I doubt this is necessarily related, but apparently Rodgers did just sell his California house. Which, I mean, yeah, like, again, he's in Green Bay. Him selling like a house in Green Bay would be more noteworthy, but it's still interesting to me. The timing of it is a little interesting.
I don't think so. I mean, he bought it not that long ago.
Yeah, but it's like, why sell it right before you might be changing teams? Especially because then you assume his only house currently is going to be one in Green Bay.
Well, that's also if he has a house in Green Bay. I don't know about that. And a lot of teams will provide you an apartment.
That's true. Yeah, look, I don't think it's necessarily indicative of anything. It's just the timing was very funny to me.
Yeah, I mean, it could be an indication that he might leave, go somewhere, and take a pay cut, or he might stay and take a pay cut because he liquidated that asset.
That's true. I mean, it's one of those. I really am not confident he's going to leave or stay because it's going to be one of those. he's got to feel like a part of him's going to feel like I've peaked here. I can't go any further with this because I mean, if he can't get there with LaFleur, because they're not going to get all the pieces they really need with the draft because of how they finished. So it's still probably a couple years out.
Yeah, and they're so screwed on salary cap space that you're not going to get the free agents you need either. You're going to lose talent. You're not going to gain talent. Yeah. So it would be a year of they're going to lean on you real hard. You say,
which when you've already been the one who's carrying the team, so to speak, I could definitely understand where he's like, you know what, I need something new. I need to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, it's close to what Brady did in New England. And yeah, it would have been, your career's towards the end. And you can't write it out year to year. Like, he really couldn't have written out that 2020 season or 2021 season.
Well, and I think it's also the reason why I think there might be even more sense for urgency to go somewhere else for Rodgers, that he only has the one ring. He wants to probably get at least one more before he leaves, because that's really been a huge knock on him. Is the Packers had Favre and Rodgers, and they have like 2 Super Bowl rings to show for it. I mean, you consider over how many decades with 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, they had the exact same amount of rings as Eli freaking Manning. That's got to sting a little.
Yep. And really, those Super Bowls they won, they had some of the best defenses.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
so
I'm sure what's going to hurt about this season is that their defense was trending way up by the time they played in that divisional game.
Yeah, when it was really like their offense, what really, well, actually their special teams, that's what really really let them down this year. Well, do we want to keep going with coaches, or should we transition to the other elephant in the room, that is quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, we can hit on quarterbacks, because that's going to be a whole thing. We already touched on Rodgers, so
I mean, it's already, it's going to eat up. It's just going to dominate this news cycle up until the actual Super Bowl at this point.
Oh yeah,
it's. I mean, at this point, is anyone going to notice the Pro Bowl?
Through the draft, like, it's going to go on, like, and that's if some players aren't traded as soon as you can, basically. But I'm not. They're not allowed to trade until after the Super Bowl.
What I think is going to be interesting to see is not just Rodgers, though, but like, how does this new vacancy in Tampa Bay change the landscape? Because going into the last couple weeks, people really were, I think, probably under an assumption that he was going to come back. Like, he didn't really seem like he was ready. Like, yeah, there was that, okay, maybe there's rumors, but I think a lot of people weren't ready. Like, I mean, I saw a lot of memes after the Schefter tweeted that he was retiring. But it's official. So, well, and it's also like,
so off the top of my head, yeah, Tampa's now in the mix. They're going to need a QE. New Orleans, because let's be honest, Green Bay's got a question mark now.
I saw just saw the New Orleans thing. It was a great meme where it showed the Joker burning the pile of money. It's Sean Payton after convincing the Saints to sign Taysom Hill to a big extension, and then retiring. Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they're in need. Seattle is another question mark. Russ leaves.
Seattle question mark. Cleveland could be a question mark.
Yeah, here, like, when the season ended, they said they were gonna resign Baker. They're committed to Baker.
Yeah,
but
if they can get someone else out of that, they're gonna go for it.
Oh yeah.
Indy, I have a feeling they're gonna be looking for someone.
100%.
Same with Houston, because
I mean, that rookie looked good, but
yeah, but still, I'm sure there's a lot of uncertain just because of Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, there's
Like,
an issue there.
if he becomes an actual trade piece, that could really change this whole thing because that is a huge piece to offer someone.
Yep. I would even throw Miami on the list.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the owner just doesn't like Tua.
Mm-hmm. Well, if that rumor's true that he was tried to get Burrow, and that's one of the reasons why Flores left is because they won too many games and up with Tua. Like, I could also see Tua getting real unhappy about it and wanting out.
Yeah. Be like, I'm gonna sit or trade me.
Yeah.
The Giants.
Yeah, Giant. Well, that one I think is really going to depend on the coach. And if they feel like they could get one of the big names, just because the new person might feel they can actually do something with Jones. He showed potential, and it's kind of like an Alex Smith and the San Francisco situation where the dude just really has not had a chance to act. He hasn't had a fair shake.
Yeah.
And there's enough there I could see someone like, okay, let's actually give him a serious try, build a team, an actual team that's not a mess.
Make him run until he's injured.
Yeah. What I think would be interesting, though, is not the Giants, but Washington. That is a team.
Yeah.
The players really seem to like Heineke. And even Rivera seems to like him. Depending on who they might be able to get, that one could go kind of, I think, either way.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those situations where you like him, you want him to succeed, but he's not going to get you over that, like, even divisional hump.
I mean, I still am not. I would say that's still kind of like he could potentially, because really look what they dealt with. Like, they had a great defense and they were looking like they could do something, and then they got hammered by injuries, and on both sides of the ball. It's if you could get a few more players in there and actually go season without injuries. He showed enough that he could potentially carry you on a run. We just don't know. It's kind of like a Case Keenum situation in Minnesota, where he had that really good season. It's just there's still enough uncertainty where, okay, can he sustain that? Only instead of being he had a really great run with a solid team, it's more, okay, what happens if you give him a solid team? Can he clean up those mistakes he makes?
Yeah, and I think that's probably going to be the teller for probably next season, is if he makes that progression, because watching his progression in the passing game, like, if McLaurin wasn't open, he would try and dump it off. It's either the running back or the tight end, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
He started to, I think, do better as the season went on, because he was hitting Humphreys and other receivers, because McLaurin's production dropped off because he would get double, triple covered. But
but also how much of that was Heineken? How much was that the other guys just weren't getting open? So what happens if you get a better number 2 option or a better O line, so he has protection, especially because they have a solid top receiver, they have a great running back. So if you get just a bit better pass protection and good number 2, that could really change that offense. So, Atlanta is another one. Atlanta and Carolina, but Atlanta especially, because I think we could potentially see Matty Ice going somewhere else.
That's what I'm thinking as well, especially if he sees like a team with really a roster with more depth. Because they have a couple little pieces, but
it's still
like they were in the running for the playoffs for the long time, but they were fighting, and there was not a lot of help there on either side of the ball.
I mean, the good news is that it's going to pick at a spot where they could address their needs. It's not like their needs are one of those positions that always goes like, where all the good players off the board in the first 10 picks. It's not like a quarterback or something. But the fact that he hasn't retired yet makes me really convinced that he's definitely coming back. It's just a question of where does he come back to?
Yeah.
And same thing with Carolina. Like, It's been awfully quiet. I haven't heard much about Darnold. But does Carolina actually think he's the answer going forward? Do they give him another shot? And I think there's one other potential question mark. Well, actually, two.
It's Cam Newton.
Well, no, I was going to say the other two teams is Minnesota and the Niners. If Minnesota wants out of the Kirk Cousins contract, they got to trade him by I can't remember. I think it's by March of this year. And with you guys, it's one of those. You know, you had the Jimmy G. It really does seem like he's gone. But the question is, does Shanahan feel like he's going to go with Lance and try to bring in someone as a backup, or is he just not confident that Lance is the guy, and he's just been kind of trying to like tread water?
So, at least from what I'm seeing initially, is that Jimmy G is already being shopped.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because I think he outright, like, it was an outright quote for him that he's working with Lynch to find a team.
Okay.
So it's pretty cool that they're at least giving him say on where he's going to go. But yeah, it sounds like he's going to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's guaranteed. So Lance is the guy.
But like, what happens if, say, Rodgers was like, you know what, I want to come play for you? Do you think that's an offer they would entertain? Like, ship off Jimmy and Lance for Rodgers?
I don't think they would do a package deal because it would leverage the future for the now. And they're not the Rams. Every step they've made has so far been towards the future. Like, as much as I hate that the fans kind of shot this, like, hey, why don't you go for, insert big name free agent here? Well, they're going to be expensive. They're going to go against the cap for multiple years, and they're older. You also don't know if they're going to be a locker room fit because you've never spoken to them. So they go for people that they know their character, they know their talent, and they know they can be developed and work towards the future and like continues.
So it sounds like they're going to go after Cousins.
I
don't think they would.
I don't know. I wouldn't think so, especially if he's going to be a lot against the cap.
Yeah.
Maybe they'd work out a deal where Minnesota pays for part of it or something if they could do that.
That'd be so stupid. I would hate that. I'd be so mad. The only way they get rid of Cousins is still pay for like half his contract.
Yeah.
In that case, just bite the bullet and go another year with him. Come on.
Pretty much. But I think at this point, like, I think they're going to do right. Send Jimmy somewhere where he wants to be, and just ride with Trey Lance.
Yeah, I can see that.
Unless something wild happens, like Rodgers is like, "Hey, let me come win a championship here."
Yeah. Oh, and I could see that being the case. Like, for all the talk about like how Rodgers can't get over the hump of the Niners and the kind of not necessarily bad blood, but like animosity of like just the rivalry of knocking him out of the playoffs so much. I don't see why he wouldn't jump at that chance if he thought it was an actual viable option.
Oh, I could see him do it. I could see him do it on a discount, just because of that, like, basically living your dream. The only thing I could see go against him is that he's been so, without having the real words for it, weird this season, and just all the drama surrounding him.
Yeah,
like
that COVID thing really, I think. That also, I think, changes his trade trajectory as well. That raised a lot of red flags for people.
Well, then there's all the drama within the locker room, like him wanting all this say. And it's obvious that they listen to the players in the 49er locker room, but also the locker room is very tight-knit. And they're very together. They showed that when Jimmy was getting more or less picked on. But I don't know. He could be either work with it, be chill, or along for the ride, or work against that.
I mean, the fact that you say, like, you raise him wanting a lot of say as kind of potential downside is funny because with someone like, Manning and Brady, there was like, oh, he has a lot of say, and that's how he is, and that's a feature, not a bug. Whereas with Roger, I think because of how it came out in a negative way with him, like, just really kind of fighting the team, causing drama, that all of a sudden people are looking at it as a downside. Whereas before that, people, I guarantee you, any team were like, yeah, he wants to say, but it's Rodgers, so okay, yeah, we'll totally give it to him. But now I wonder if more people are more like, eh.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't necessarily against it because, he stood up, said, hey, give me Cobb back. They got Cobb back, and he was productive, helped out, and I think it also probably helped towards the development of Lazard. But the way you went about it, it's not like you ever heard Manning or Brady ever threatening to just sit out. I'm not going to play. He can stay where he is. He probably will. Let's be honest.
Yeah, he probably will.
And I don't think anyone's going to take him besides Denver. But I think that was just where all the negatives came from. And then you can't tell me he didn't tank that first game.
Yeah, especially the way the rest of the season went, it really feels that way.
Yeah,
it really does.
I mean, die by him.
What if you guys end up with Matt Ryan trying to come in?
Yeah, he is a diva. Matt Ryan. I think Matt Ryan would fit in better.
Yeah. There is another name that hasn't been talked about, but I think a lot of people just have already written off, forgotten him. But notice we haven't heard much about whether or not Fitzmagic's going to try to make another go at it.
Yeah.
He's still out there. I have not heard anything about him retiring. And he got hurt pretty early, so he might be recovered in time.
Old man's hit. Yeah.
Right?
I think it'd be fun to see him come back and play in Washington.
Yeah. I mean, or Miami. Or Tampa Bay.
Yeah. I think that would be... Yeah, Tampa Bay would be pretty fun. But I think Aaron's would probably have an ulcer.
So what you're saying is we want him to go to Tampa Bay because Arian, I think, deserves an ulcer.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, that is, I think, a big wild card that's just been kind of overlooked because of how long ago he really got hurt. I mean, but I could see him going somewhere, even maybe like New Orleans or something.
Yeah, which, I mean, they still got to hire. I haven't seen anything about them interviewing for head coach or anything, unless they're going to promote from within.
Makes me wonder if there's that, or they're trying to go for one of the people from Rams.
Yeah, that's potentially. But even, I remember someone is interviewing both offensive and defensive coordinator for them.
The Vikings, I think, had interviews.
They?
I believe I heard they had second interviews.
Probably then. Yeah, then
but also, I mean, the Vikings had a bit longer because didn't Peyton retire well after Zimmer got let go? I feel like so that could also be why they aren't as far along. So they might have to schedule stuff. I don't know though. What else we get? What other news should we go over? Or do you just want to go to the games? Or you just try to avoid talking about those games?
Oh, no. We'll talk about it. Much as it pains me.
Well, we can delay it a bit. We can talk about the first of the two. Save you some heartache.
I mean, yeah. Bengals Chief, that was a good game.
I think the biggest surprise for me was that he only got sacked once.
Yeah, that was a big surprise. They got pressure though, but yeah, not giving up those sacks is pretty big.
Mm. So I imagine a lot of people when they saw the Chiefs win that flip were like, "You got to be kidding me! Not again! Come on!"
Of course.
Which, I mean, I'm happy the Bengals won, but I still really think they need to fix these overtime rules. It's so dumb.
Fix
Like,
what?
they need to fix the playoff overtime rules. Like regular
Oh,
season, it's fine, it works, whatever.
yeah.
But for the playoffs, if you're going to overtime, each offense should be guaranteed at least one possession. Like it was applicable here because the Chiefs turned it over. But let's say they had got down and scored a touchdown. The Bengals should have been given a chance, just like the Bills should be
Yep.
given a chance. Afterwards, you could do there's
Oh,
all
man.
sorts of other things you could do, but just
Espe-
it's the playoffs, man. Come on.
Especially games like this and even the week before with the Bills and Chiefs, because it like you already knew, everybody knew whoever was winning the coin toss is going to win the game because both defenses are gassed, both
Yeah.
offenses are rolling. It's like you just need to let them shoot it out, and either one defense is going to get a stop or one offense is just not going to score.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, you're going to get a winner.
Well, and that's why I really like that idea of after each team gets a possession, then it becomes the first team to begin a possession with the lead wins. Because then it's no longer know what I have to do not to lose. It's now okay. I know what I have to do to win, so I have to do this. Like they got a touchdown, we have to match it. We can't settle our field goals. It's all or nothing. And same thing with if you have the ball. It's like okay, do you really want to settle for a field goal, or do you want to try to go for that touchdown? And if you want to avoid it from going too long, then you can say, okay, after the second possession for each team, now you require 2-point conversions. There's all sorts of ways they could handle it that would make sure that eventually someone comes up without it going on forever.
Yeah, I mean that'd be interesting actually. So that be interesting in a way that watching a lot of coaches adapt to that new style.
Mm-hmm.
So it would make it a little more exciting, especially once the game hit OT, and so many games have hit OT this season, and I think that's going to continue.
Yeah.
Because each team, there's no outstanding teams right now.
Well, and also I think, dude, kickers have gotten really good the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
You have the guy freaking McPherson.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to be a legend with his calling that championship berth, but between him, Tucker, you still got Gould kicking. You got some really good kickers, and they have gotten better and better. So, honestly, I give it 10 years, and I bet you will see people hitting 67, 68-yard field goals, which will be nuts.
Yeah, and I mean, distance one thing, but even someone reposted McPherson's video where he unscrewed the Gatorade bottle in the goalposts.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, it was duct taped to the goalpost, and he kicked a field goal, skimmed just the side of the Gatorade bottle, and unscrewed it.
Yeah, it's nuts. And then that paired with the offenses, because I saw an interesting breakdown where someone kind of basically the too long didn't read was, while yes, you need a defense to win a Super Bowl, the better your offense, having an amazing offense and a good defense is going to get you further than having an amazing defense and a middling offense. Now, this isn't the days of the ground it out on the ground, wear them down. You have the Chiefs, you have the Bills, you had Tampa Bay, you have all these teams where it's it doesn't matter how amazing your defensive is, unless your front seven is always getting to the quarterback, the offense is going to move the ball at some point. And the other thing they point out is that it's a lot easier to be consistently good on offense from year to year than it is from defense. Because if you really look at the great defenses, the ones that really been dominant, they either have been really great at pressure or at turnovers. But those are both really hard stats to get to be consistently good in and year out, because there's a lot of randomness involved in those.
Yeah.
And that's the other reason why I think they really need to just realize that, hey guys, we've made this into an offensive game from all the changes we made. We need to adapt to overtime to account for that.
Yeah, the rules are definitely stacked against defense.
But man, this was a good game.
Yeah, I'm right here. We just thought, at least I thought, Kansas City is just going to run away with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I would probably ahead of myself. I'd rather see the Bengals keep going.
Well, I'm sure everyone was rooting outside of Chiefs. Were rooting for the Bengals because we've already seen enough of the Chiefs. It's time for someone else.
Yep. Tired of the Chiefs and Mahomes' family.
See, that what cracks me up because
you don't see it.
Yeah, the only time I see it is other people complaining about it.
Yeah, I tend to see a lot of reposts of people complaining, and it's like, I mean, the Sonics, they look like
stop talking about them.
Screwed up people, but yeah, you just don't give them attention; they'll go away.
Yeah. I am intrigued to see the Bengals that they can build up their O-line and get a few more pieces on defense.
Yeah, so going a little farther ahead that way. I'd be interested to see them increase their O-line, but also retain the receivers because I kind of got a feeling they're not going to be able to.
I don't know how they have all three of those guys, and if they can keep them all through at least next year, that'll be amazing.
I think the one they could afford to lose is Boyd because Higgins stepped up so big, and of course you have Chase.
Yeah,
but yeah, if any are going to walk, it's probably going to be Boyd.
Yeah, and that's my thought too. Just because on any other team he wouldn't be, but on this team he was the number 3 just because the other two were that much better. And it's not a knock on Boyd. He's an amazing receiver. It's just the other two were better is what it comes down to. And the dude could easily go be a number 1 or number 2 on a lot of other teams. But even then, they could find themselves in a situation where I think Tampa is going to be in either next year or the year following with Evans and Godwin, where they're going to have a hard time keeping those two around. So,
I mean, Godwin's already up this season, and he's come back from ACL.
But what's interesting to me is I think, even ignoring the fact that Chase is the rookie, I could see him staying the longest just because he has that rapport with Burrow. Like, he seems like it's like a Brady Gronk kind of thing where, Burrow's really going to fight to keep him around and keep him involved. So I'm curious to see how that dynamic plays out too. Is maybe they both walk because they're like, we're really good receivers, but we want to be the number 1 guy. We know we can. And that would be interesting to see how they could recover from losing both of those two guys.
Yeah. That would be awesome. The big man interception. I miss that play.
You always got to love those.
That would be big because on some other teams and some other systems, both Higgins and Boyd would be number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, Detroit's needy, Atlanta.
Well, and it's also, I think, not only is there a lot of needy teams, there's also a lot of teams where they're probably going to lose their number 2 guy or their number 1 guy. Like, I mean, I love Thielen, but it really does seem like he doesn't have many years left between just how much he's getting hurt and just Jefferson eating up all his shares. Whether he retires or goes to another team, it seems like he only has maybe 1 or 2 more seasons at most left. And even that might be pushing it.
And even, who's your third string guy?
It changed. I want to say it's I can't think of the guy's name. CJ, no.
KJ Osborne.
Osborne, that's it. I want to say BC,
Osborne
but
looked
that
good.
was who they had before Osborne really showed up this year.
Because Osborne looked good. He looked like he could take over.
But what's interesting is like he was inconsistent. And I think that's what's actually really telling is like he would have some games where he just showed up and other games where he just was non-existent. And that's, I think, the big issue. He has to fix that inconsistency. But then also the other reason why I don't know if he's going to really step up is I could actually see them doing what they used to do with Rudolph, where like once they get Irv Smith back from injury, because so the number 3 in targets was Conklin, the backup tight end. So they already used him. He had a few more targets than Osborne. If you lose Thalen, but you get Irv Smith back, they're the kind of offense. Okay, depends on the coach. But when you have both Conklin and Smith on your roster, why not just do 2 tight end sets? They're both solid blockers and solid receivers. You know, throw in Cook and Jefferson.
Yeah, which I mean, if you do get Harbaugh, he loved those 2 tight end sons. So if that is real, like he's a fan of that, so you'll probably get that. The Warcraft.
I can feel about him.
I feel that. But obviously the whole deal in San Francisco wasn't him. It was definitely the GM and the owner.
Yeah. Well, I mean, losing the OC so often was, you know, that's going to destroy everything. That was a big problem for the Vikings too. They kept on losing their OCs. I mean, and that's the other reason why I could see him. Especially seeing the rumors really start to spread with the new GM, I could see that being a case just because they have that, you know, Niners connection.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's what it is. It's honestly at this point, even if it is Harbaugh, you know, they needed to change.
Yep.
Even if he does worse, people might say you should have kept him. Like, no, they needed to change, even if it gets worse.
There is one potential issue. It was actually on a podcast that I watched not that long ago with Joe Staley, and he was talking about Harbaugh, and because he, you know, was coached by so many coaches, because he went through that whole carousel since I think like Singletary, you know, Bill Shanahan and Harbaugh mostly, but he talked about how he's perfect for college because that saying they used in the locker room when they went on their big run and made it to the playoffs and even the Super Bowl, you know, who's got it better than us, he just continued to use that. He's like, he just does the same thing, and we're here every year, so it's like more of the same, you know?
Well, and he's like Saban, where he's just built for college, between like, you know, the energy he brings, the, you know, culture he likes, his behavior, it screams college football. It almost seems out of place at the pro level. But then also it's, you know, he is a Michigan guy. He was a Michigan quarterback. That is his school.
Yep. I will be surprised if he gives that up.
Yeah. Especially because he's not only been there, but he's finally found success. Like, it'd be one thing if they had won the CFP, then I could find that more believable. But the fact that they they finally made it, finally beat the rival, but didn't, that's the one where I'm like, I don't know. But also, he seems like the guy who just he wants to show that he can coach the NFL. But I think that'd be a bad move on his part, because he literally has the dream college scenario for him.
Yeah, I feel the same about that. Because it's one of those, he's got a lot of love from the boosters, you know, he's showing improvement, and you're going to get that all up for another shot in the NFL.
And another thing, I think he seems to enjoy the one aspect of college that a lot of coaches don't, and that's the recruiting. That's the big difference between college and the pros more than anything else, and you really need to be someone who enjoys that for it to work. And he seems to. There's a lot of coaches that I don't think they would be down with that.
Yeah, because that seemed like one aspect he really liked as far as with the Niners, getting into the GM's business and, advocating like we need to keep this guy, keep that guy, but Bulky loves to wheel and deal, so screwed us over.
Lieutenant Comfort, it sounds like he's the big problem in New York. That's why apparently they've turned down a lot of. I'm pretty sure Balke, Balke.
Yeah, he's with Jacksonville.
Was he with Jacksonville?
Yeah, GM there.
Okay, sorry, with Jacksonville, but that is a point of contention. Is a lot of the coach they interviewed was like, I don't want him. So they're trying to find a coach who.
I think
it doesn't have that as like, I'm not coming if he's there.
So last I saw, I think it was Greg Roman was front runner.
I'm sure that is.
Just because they have that again Niners tie. But after I think he was interviewed, then another Niners tie, I think it was Vic Fangio. They flew him out for an interview. We'll see.
They can take him. I'm sure Denver is done with him.
Yeah. Not surprising.
Well, speaking of Niners ties, should we rip that Band-Aid off?
Yep. More like pull the knife out.
So which hurts more? The fact that for the second time you saw Shanahan blow a double-digit lead in the playoffs, or that it was against the Rams?
The Rams part.
Okay, that's fair.
Because I could feel it happening, them losing the lead, because the offense was so just hot and cold, mostly cold, and missing plays. They haven't been clicking throughout this postseason, honestly.
Yeah.
Outside the Dallas game. And they played the run really well. The Rams did. So, loading the box, they just overloaded the box. Anywhere from 9 to 10 guys plus. They brought everyone down for the run. They just committed hard, which is something they haven't done. But to me, it hurts more to be the Rams because they're a sellout team. It'd be one thing if they built this, roster and team, but they just paid a bunch of dudes to be here. And it's a lot of divas, and I don't know. There's a lot of people that are just going to be annoying if they get a ring.
Well, I mean, OBJ's already, I don't think he's going to get any more annoying than he already is. That's the other thing. Actually, look at the Rams. OBJ and Ramsey are really the only two guys that really seem like they could get more annoying. But also, because when did they bring in Ramsey? I feel like he's been there at least a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to say 2 seasons.
Let's see.
Sure.
Was it in 2019 or 2020? 2019. So this is his 3rd season with the Rams.
Yeah.
And so even then, it's like that one doesn't feel quite the same level as Stafford or some of the other really buying a player, because it's the guy was pretty much getting to the end of his deal, looking for a new team, wasn't happy. So that one's not that weird. It's not like an OBJ or AB where they just brought him in on a 1 year. Hey, we just need you now. Sort of.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, it's you know he's having issues, you know he wants to leave, you give up a first round pick for him. You give up whatever. Oh no, they just picked up OBJ because he was on waivers or cleared waivers because no one wanted him. But then you leverage 3 first rounds for Stafford. How like the rest of the picks next year for Von Miller. And like Von Miller, I don't have any issues with. Aaron Donald, I feel like he could get really annoying because he seems very entitled.
See, that's interesting to me because as a outside observer, I don't see that.
Yeah,
more so than any other big name face of a team player.
I feel like it's very mixed with him because at one point, you look like this all pro who carries himself well, plays well, doesn't really ruffle feathers, and then on the other hand, it's like you throw this tantrum. No, like you want, I don't know. I just got a feeling he wants it for. It's that I want it for me, not for us.
Yeah, like I have to wonder how much that is just because he's a Ram and not actually because.
So it's not entirely because he's a Ram, because of the words he used on the sideline. During the game, like he gave a speech and they're like, yeah, he doesn't talk much, but he pulled the defense together and had some words, but everything he said was me and I want this ring.
Yeah. But so let me ask you this. That's the same language Michael Jordan used.
So, yeah, that's also 5-man squad versus 11.
But it's the same thing where it's like, that was just seen as like he had that will to win. He wanted that to it was like he wanted to be competitive. He wanted to be the best. And that's what I mean by I wonder how much of it is, the fact he's a Ram is because you see that with a lot of people we overlook just because he wants to be the best. He's a competitor. He wants to get that ring. Oh, he went there because he wants to get that ring. And, it's very often I notice that we will switch from it's a team sport. One person can't win the game to then also pivot to
blaming one guy for
it's like, oh, he's just a competitor and he can carry the team. It's because it's an 11-man sport. It's one person can't, but they can also have a huge impact. So and that's why I say, as someone who really has no animosity against any of those teams in that division.
Yeah,
even the Seahawks. I'm like, I don't hate the Seahawks. I should as a Vikings fan.
So far, I've hated. I guess more of the fan base rather than the actual team, because Wilson used to see me screw the I'll watch Wilson play even against the night and be like, screw that guy, but that was a good play. He's been able to win without an O-line for how long? There's stuff that you're impressed by and you're like, okay, and most of the players yeah, they're okay, but then of course there's one or two you're like, yeah, screw that guy. But for the most part, the fan base has been terrible. They're just hard to be around.
My thought on that is it's the same thing we saw with New England, where it's just because they had quick
success,
sustained success.
Mm-hmm.
And that tends to breed a lot of really annoying fans. Because also it's they kind of faded. It's one of those, those fans aren't the vocal people when they're terrible. Those are the kind of fans that tend to disappear.
Yep. I don't know. To me, I have the same issue with the Rams that I do with the Cardinals, in that you're selling out for these players and 1 year goes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you get 2. But after that, it's you're either going to continue to sell out your future for these 1 year stints, not think about the future, and maybe win, that's the way the rest of the teams are going to go. And if that is the route that other teams are going to go, they're going to overspend on free agents, and then it's going to muddle the free agency pool.
But the flip side of that is you're going to have a lot of teams try to do that, but then the teams that don't, because that's not how they roll, like the Patriots or whatever, they're going to be fine because they won't implode. And because also this didn't start with the Rams. I mean, look at the Bucks team last year. How many guys did they bring in on short-term deals just to because they were in that win now mode? And honestly,
Yeah, I don't.
they kind of did that their last Super Bowl, where how many of those guys did they lose after that Super Bowl?
Yep.
It's
I didn't want them to win either for that same purpose.
honestly, the only issue I had with the Bucks was I was just tired of Brady. I was tired of everyone act like he is the reason they keep winning when he keeps on having great defenses. Because again, it's that whole you can't say, "Oh, he is the reason why they're winning," but then at the same time say, "Oh, well, the team." It's both guys. It is a team sport.
I laughed about it because I'm like, of course you pick them. They have a they have an okay running back. They never had a running game. Doesn't matter who's back there, but they have great receivers and a great defense.
He took over the team that threw for 5,400 yards while also throwing for 30 interceptions. Of course, they were going to be a good offense. that was before they upgraded their O-line.
Yep.
Yeah, I do understand the issues with the whole super team, but I mean, to me, it's just I think that's just how the NFL goes. It's going to come in cycles and boom bust. The only difference is this is the first year we've really seen teams find success with that. How many times have we seen the big blockbuster trade? It just in the past it really pans out.
Or when they leverage all of that for that player and they do great on that one side, but because they spent all that money, they got to give somewhere else.
I mean, Vikings are arguably have one of the best examples with Herschel Walker. The Vikings built the Cowboys dynasty of the 90s because the Cowboys used all those picks to build those teams that won them those rings.
Yeah,
it's just for this is the first year, first few years where started to see actually those teams find success. And I think a lot of that is because it's such an offensive friendly league that now it's a lot easier to get a really good offensive playmaker to really take your offense to that next level where you can overcome some of the other issues. As long as you have a solid defense, you're good. But I also don't think that's going to be a long-term trend. I think you'll see some teams jump on the bandwagon. But I would suspect that the Bucks and the Rams are going to be an exception rather than a rule. And most of the teams are going to try it, and they're just going to implode like they normally do when that happens. And then it's just kind of
like the Cardinals.
Yeah,
the Cardinals imploded at the end of the season, and I don't know. To me, it's also another point of contention where it's like you give the coach all this praise and they're such a mastermind, but really they just have all these superstars around them. I'd be impressed for them not to get 300 yards a game.
Yeah.
And find a way to win.
Offensive geniuses has been the trend for coaching for, I feel like, at least 5 years. And it's funny that really none of those young offensive geniuses have really won the Super Bowl yet with all the talent they've had. And I think it's because it takes more than just an offensive genius to win.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I've been, of course, most impressed with Shanahan when it comes to that category, just because he's developed a lot of his own talent, as opposed to McVay, where I watch him play and I'm like, okay, yeah, you ran twice, you're doing a bootleg, that's out of Shanahan's playbook. They run similar stuff, which is that West Coast edge running.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, I think what was interesting to me, and this to circle back to this game, and that's one of those, there's a lot of talk about how you guys' offense was stalling out, but I think that ultimately was a big factor, especially in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
What I really noticed is your defense was struggling in places they normally haven't. They were giving up some big conversions, giving up third downs, and that's really where I think the biggest issue was for you guys is your defense almost felt like a weakness in the first half.
Yeah.
And it was one of those well, yeah, you guys kind of kept them in check. You also saw there was enough give where you could see where it's okay, if you guys don't run away with this soon, something's going to give in the second half. Your defense is going to get tired. They gave up a lot of long drives. And
Yeah.
honestly, that's what I think it came down to was your defense struggled early. And what that led to is by the time when your offense started struggling, especially in the second half, they were just so tired.
Yeah, I thought that early because it wasn't like it didn't seem like they forced any 3-and-outs, and they weren't getting pressure to Stafford. That was probably the difference between this game and the previous ones.
Mhm.
Like the Rams did punt a few times, but they at least probably got a first down on those drives. It stayed out
You
of
guys
extra
forced
plays.
1 3-and-out the very first drive.
Yeah.
And then there was a 10-play interception, 18-play touchdown, 12-play field goal. So, yeah, and that's really what it like. Man, yeah, those 3 drives right there, that's almost 18 minutes on just 3 drives in the first half.
And that was taking a chapter from Shanahan. It's the control the clock. They actually ran the ball and committed to running it. So it was using that game plan that he normally uses on them against him.
Yeah. Which, I mean, honestly, that's kind of a pretty smart move on his part because, as a coach, I'm sure your game plan like, oh, this is what they do, this is what we play, and we're good. Then if all of a sudden he comes out and basically mimics your offense, it's one of those, oh, I wasn't prepared for this. What do I do, guys? But
Yeah,
you figured it out in the second half. It felt like just it was too late then.
Yeah. Some of the pressure was getting there, but they weren't getting there fast enough. You could see, like, on the edges, they were playing more contained rather than going straight after him at times.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you have to pressure Stafford
Mhm.
to get him to make those mistakes. But, yeah, no.
It's interesting they play contained because it's, he's not a Trey Lance. He's not a Mahomes. He's not a Josh Allen. He's not one of those guys who scrambles regularly as part of his normal playbook. It's more he's like a Kirk Cousins where he's like, oh, yeah, there's a lane, or hey, there's a guy on my tail. I gotta scramble. So it's surprising that you would go for the contain rather than the pressure on him.
Yeah, I just noticed that happen a few times where you watch Bosa come off the edge and he just stops and like holds his block rather than go right after him. I think because there was a little bit of a misdirection, I think, with the halfback that made him hesitate. So I don't know if that was part of their plan, or unintentional.
It seemed like it was. It seemed like they had quite a few plays where they was designed to really draw the pressure one way so they can have the play go another way, which that's how you handle the pressure teams is you misdirect them with play fakes or whatever. So yeah, it was I think an interesting thing though, and this applied to both games, but I thought it was more apparent in this one was just how much the refs were letting both teams get away with.
Yeah, I've been noticing that through the past 2 weeks.
But like this weekend especially felt really bad. Like there was some really, really
late hits, helmet to helmets, like big penalties.
And ones that like it's really hard to say, oh, they just didn't see that. That's what I think the big part was. It's like there was a hit on Stafford. There was, I believe, there was a hit out of bounds. There was there was a lot of times where like, oh, they're basically like choking Bosa. Like there was a lot where I was like, how are they missing this?
Choking Bosa happens every game.
But like ones where it was like very obvious.
It's always very obvious. The only time it ever gets called is if the lineman is basically behind Bosa with his arm around him and it's in full plain view of the ref. I'd say
I saw some of those like that. That was the thing.
Yeah.
Well, there's also quite a few, and I saw both teams do this in this game where they were full on like hugging the receiver. Mm-hmm. There was quite a few times where both teams you would see the guy and they were just like, you could see him get flipped around, and I was, and it also like because I don't think they called like a hold in the secondary pass interference until the third quarter.
Yeah,
and when they did, I was very surprised because that was by far like the one they finally called was like that was not even
Yeah, a little
close to the
tug.
worst one I've seen.
Oh.
So, I have to wonder how that may have affected it by allowing both teams to just go at it so much. I'm not sure if normally that would favor you guys, but it felt like it also allowed the Rams to be really physical, which may have caught the Niners off guard. Maybe they're not used to that. I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, normally when penalties like that are called for, it's kind of a weird line that I've seen the Rams walk, where they'll get physical, but they get undisciplined, so they commit penalties, so they become less physical, to control themselves. But yeah, without those penalties, like they just got out of control.
Yeah, like both teams were just. I mean, it was a physical game. There was.
Yeah. But I think the craziest thing is like I remember seeing that this ref staff is like they've thrown the most penalties throughout the season.
Now that's surprising.
So I was very surprised that nothing was thrown for the longest time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's I can say that it doesn't feel like it was unfairly called just because they let both teams get away with so much. So at least that's like I don't think it's like, oh, they rigged or something, but I could see the NFL came and like, hey, let them play, just let them do their thing. Try not to influence the game, and maybe that's what happened because that's what I think it is. A lot of teams say like, oh, the NFL's rigged. They call this like it's most of the time it doesn't feel that blatantly one-sided. But I do think the NFL does stuff where it's like, just let this one, don't be ticky-tacky or be ticky-tacky because they do want an impact on the game, but they don't want it to be an unbalanced one.
I feel like, one I've noticed, like the biggest complaint is that consistency, like that hold. Like you're not going to call all these holds all game, but you're going to call this one.
Yeah.
And you're going to call it PI instead of a hold. And you're going to, like the inconsistency like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard be the issue as opposed to making a bunch of calls. Unless you're a Cowboys fan like Kima.
Yeah.
Then all calls against you are hearsay. He was still complaining about that during this game.
Yeah, and then if you give video evidence,
anytime a single penalty got called against the Rams, you'd be like, "Oh, they're in your corner again." I'd be like, "Really? Really?" I'd be like, "All right, wait for it." Rams next drive. Hey, there's a block in the back and a hold, and that was a late hit.
I'm sorry. After seeing that Stafford hit, there's no way you could say, "Oh, they were in your corner." It was between that and the Debo hit.
Yeah, picking up that flag, I was kind of surprised about because I thought
when I saw the replay, it was a clean hit. Like at full speed, it looked bad.
Yeah.
But when you saw the replay, it's like, okay, that one looked like it was the Sky Dodge actually doing their job. We're like, yeah, it was a rough hit, but never made contact with the helmet. It was just a hard hit.
And see, I didn't think it was going to be a hit to the neck or shoulder, like neck or head area. I thought it was going to be defenseless receiver because he was in the air.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, that's what it's for. And then they picked it up. I'm like, oh, all right, but
yeah. Well, because also they were letting them get hit like that a lot, and I think that was one where at first it looked like it was helmet because it did. I legitimately thought he straight up hit him with the crown of his helmet, and it wasn't until you saw the replay, it's like, oh no, it just shoulder got him.
Yeah.
Which that I was okay with because that was at least consistent with how they called most of the game. Was they weren't calling defensive receivers.
Yeah. And they also weren't calling I think I want to say Ward pulled one. It was like those weird hits where they kind of launch their bodies, but they lead with the shoulder, turn their head. He did one of those, but he caught him with the helmet still first. So it's like I've seen him do that. I don't know how many times, but they didn't call it, so it's like,
Okay,
I don't know.
at least they were consistent
Yeah,
this
that's like
game.
that's that consistency thing. Like it happened both ways, where you could make a
Mhm.
case that like, oh, that was violent, whatever. Or even in real time, yeah, that was with the helmet. But you saw the effort in the replay where they turn their head. And it's like,
Yeah,
let them play.
yeah. Well, and it was nice to see a game without really any super controversial calls. Like there was no time where I'm like, it wasn't like the Bengals, with that like, oh, the whistle blew it dead or something. It wasn't anything like that.
Oh yeah, that was ridiculous.
Yeah,
That I feel like that's could have been what sparked it, at least for the postseason.
I could see that very much. Where they're like, hey
And
guys, try not to influence the game. Well, I mean, another good example of was that fumble where like everyone stopped playing, but one of your guys ran up into the end zone. They marked the
oh yeah,
touchdown, but then they're like,
yeah,
because like even so, I was sitting there, like I watched it, I was like, that was clearly an incomplete pass. But I
hmm
understand why they let it play out because that is a lot better than calling it dead when like, oh no, actually turns out they did fumble it and you guys just lost the game.
yeah.
Sorry,
Oh no,
our bad.
I appreciated that because I don't know how many times you've ever seen like when you go back, they go back to throw, the
Mhm.
ball's out here, but because you're starting the
Yeah.
momentum, it flies forward, and they do the motion, and it looks like a
Hmm.
forward pass. They mark it incomplete, but they're like, no, that's a fumble.
Yeah.
So by letting that play out, where it was almost like the tuck rule because he was fully here, tried to bring it back and launched it, and I'm like, oh, he got so lucky.
Sarator even straight up mentioned like, we almost had a tuck situation, but we did it. He did.
That was so close because I
Yeah.
saw the like last second try and pull it back, already gone.
But
Like, oh, you got like
that's how
one
they should
sport.
handle those situations where it's
Yeah,
let them recover, get the touchdown, unless there's something obvious, and then go back and say
Mhm.
after review, blah.
And then
So
the biggest thing is they're all on the same page. It's not like one guy blew the whistle.
yeah.
No one blew the whistle. They let the play go. It's automatically reviewed.
Hmm.
Hey, yeah, it's coming back.
Yeah. I think really the biggest takeaway from this, and I hope it carries into Super Bowl, is this has felt like the most competitive 2 weekends of playoff football. Like, it's there were points in the game where teams were like pulling away, but when you got down towards the end, not once did you feel like one team was clearly outmatched.
Yeah, no, and I think that's been to me that's been appreciated as far as from the divisional round, through to now.
Hmm.
Everything felt even, competitive. Just besides those few teams that squeaked into the wild card, where it felt like they were bye weeks.
Yeah. I mean, even then, though, I'm actually curious. Let's see. So I want to see the wild card results. Because I feel like there wasn't as many blowouts. Like, even in the wild card, I feel like it wasn't. Other than the Patriots game. So Patriots was a blowout. Bucks versus Eagles was a
Bucks,
blowout. Okay, I guess
Steelers,
Chiefs
yeah,
Rams. So okay, never mind. Yeah, I guess it was like Niners, Cowboys, Bengals, Raiders were the actual close ones. The rest were kind of blowouts. So okay, never mind. You're right.
yeah. Which, in all honesty, like to me, the Cowboys, like I don't know if they should have been there.
I understand why they were because
Yeah,
it's I've seen a lot of people try to make the case that what they should get away with automatic division bursts or just be like top ranked teams, but it's at some point winning your division should mean something, even
yep.
if you win 7-9, even if the odds are you're not going to win. We've seen crazier things
Oh,
happen.
yeah, we've seen 8-8 teams, which was Seattle, win against like the Super Bowl favorite.
Yeah, and I mean not just win. We've seen them go on a tear through the playoffs and then be like the only undefeated team. It's
Yeah.
so that's why I don't have a problem with that.
No.
And honestly, I don't think going forward, you'll see this as much. Where like there really are two teams that just like really feel like they shouldn't be in the playoffs, and I think that's because if you really look at this year, especially, I think that's just more that so many teams this year were so hot cold
Mhm.
and inconsistent that that's really what's going on. Because in years past, there's been quite a few times where it's like, yeah, that team was really good, but sorry, only room for 6. And it feels like normally that's more often the case.
So, I mean, I don't know. I did expect more out of Arizona, like during that wild card weekend. Same with Patriots. Expected that to be a better game. Everything else played out how I expected,
Mm-hmm.
but
I think I expected the
Yeah.
Patriots to keep it closer for the first half.
Mhm.
Like I had a feeling Buffalo was going to run over them just because it's, it's I thought either the Patriots were going to run over it in the end or the Bills. I had a feeling it would end in a blowout just because both those teams' strengths played well against the other team's weaknesses. It was just a matter of who could actually pull it off. I expected it to be the Patriots just because they had a really good run game against a bad run defense. But I was expecting for a set to be more competitive.
Yeah.
Rams Cardinals, though, I mean, the reason why that one's surprising is just because of how the Cardinals finished the season.
Yeah, and I don't know. I wasn't surprised, and once they lost Hopkins, I'm like, I don't expect them to really pull it off because Kingsbury got away from the run game and feeding Connor,
Mm-hmm.
and especially since Connor came back from injury, like they had him for the playoff game, and just put everything on Murray's shoulders.
Yeah,
and he's not ready.
No,
he showed it during the season,
mm-hmm.
but he's not ready for that.
Yeah. But speaking of ready, are you ready for the Super Bowl?
I mean, I'll fire up the grill, I guess.
Sorry, Superb Owl. I don't want to get
Superb Owl.
Don't want to get sued by the NFL.
That I'm ready for.
To see who is the more superb owl.
Yes.
So Rams are favored by 66-33. Set your Rams hatred aside. Do you feel like that is a fair slant?
It is only because I do believe they have the better defense. And it's going to depend on how much Burrow and the rest of the offense can do against that defense. Because I feel like the Rams are going to put up points no matter what, because the Bengals defense, they're going to give up points. But it's going to be a lot of what can the Bengals do to mitigate pressure getting to Burrow.
Yeah. Honestly, that is the single deciding factor in that game is for all his swagger, Burrow's got to be terrified of if the Titans were able to sack him 9 times, what is that D-line going to be able to do to him? Because
one thing I hope they do is they look at the Niners tape. Because even though Jimmy got sacked, they made people do it who aren't named Aaron Donald.
Mm-hmm. But also, it's they did that by double, triple teaming him. But even then, there was times where Donald was splitting Dak's blocks and getting pressure. He might not have gotten home, but he was still getting pressure and splitting those blocks. And I'd say you guys have the better O-line. So if you guys still couldn't totally, keep him from pressuring,
yeah. Which, I don't know. Well, I feel like our O-line was playing so off. I feel like they gave up a lot more pressure than they did without
when Williams was hurt.
Yeah, without Williams.
But I mean, it could be because he was actually in there playing hurt when he should have been.
Yeah.
And also maybe like, Tom Compton's Cinderella story came to an end.
Yeah, he was giving up pressures in this postseason,
Which
especially
that
in
is
Green.
the Tom Compton I know.
Yeah, he was giving up sacks left and right in Green Bay. We'll see on the right, but
I mean, you guys know my stance about O lineman picked by Spielman, so hopefully for you guys have better long term success with him.
well, I saw he was acquired by Minnesota. He wasn't drafted by Minnesota.
Oh, but still, even the scouts he's picked up, like there's really only been 2 free agent linemen they've picked up that have actually been fairly good,
Fair
and that
enough.
is Riley Riff and I can't remember the other guy. John Sullivan, I think it was. I think he's the guy who took over from Matt Burke when Burke retired for a while. And that's really about it. But, I mean, it's also going to be hard because while we saw the Rams create a playbook that helps, alleviate some of that pressure, the downside is the Rams also have some really good players in the secondary and at the second and third
Mhm.
level. And that's what I think is going to make it really hard. It's like, you have Von Miller, you have Ramsey. I mean, yeah, he's an old man, but Weddle is still like he has some really good football instincts. He might not have the
Weddle,
speed to pull it off, but he
yeah,
has good instincts and he can read plays. So, like, that's what I think is going to make it really hard for them to misdirect them.
yeah. I at the same time, like you throw it to the guy that Ramsey isn't blanketing, and even throwing Weddle's way because they did that a few times when he matched up on Kittle.
Mhm.
You're still going to get the completion. You're going to get the play, and then also you have another safety back there who's dealing with an injury, and you don't have just Debo to really worry about because Ayuk's the guy who could beat single coverage. That's why
Mhm.
he previously had a 100-yard game against him, and he did pretty decent in this game. Made a couple big catches, but you got to now deal with 3 guys in
Yeah.
Boyd, Higgins, and Chase.
Though I think what's also going to be really interesting to see. I mean, this applies to both teams, but the Bengals. Well, the Bengals and Rams, both their tight ends suffered MCL sprains. So how does that shake out? I mean, Azama had to actually be carted off and was seen on crutches. My understanding is at first look, it looks like his might be a bit more serious. So how does losing your tight end affect that? Because how consistently are you going to get at least one of those 3 open underneath? Because that's what they're going to need. Is they're going to need to really start getting those underneath middle routes
Yeah,
enough that they can't just keep coming right at you. They're going to have to back off so you have time to start getting those downfield passes. Because that's the thing, it's early going. If they're gonna have a hard time having time for those deep routes to open up, just because
yeah,
that O line, man, it's gonna just fall apart.
yeah, and I don't know, just based on what we've seen through the postseason and off or regular season, I got more faith that Zach Taylor will create opportunities underneath as opposed to Sean McVay.
That's fair.
I've noticed Sean McVay will run like maybe 2 to 3, and that's total between wide receiver screens and just that quick pass to the wide receiver that I don't know what you'd call it because it's not technically a screen, but he'll do that just a handful of times. But it seems like Taylor will rely on it a little more, like run the end around with Chase, do a screen to Chase, use a little misdirection to get the slot out because I think he did that for the 2-point conversion to
Yeah,
Taylor. Yeah, so I don't know. I think he would make a few more adjustments on the offensive side. Probably get someone like Taylor in the slot that underneath route. or even Mixon.
Another thing I want to check that I just thought of is
I would be surprised if the Rams don't use Akers more
yeah.
next game.
Well,
I mean, he had an injured shoulder, but
so it's also good. Like he's not shown up on the injury report yet. So far, the only guys still listed is Noteboom, Higby, and Rap. And that was actually I'm wondering is so Noteboom is listed as questionable still, but there's no comment. So if they can get him back with Whitworth, that could also be really big for the Rams. Is now you're back with your two starting tackles. And going into the Super Bowl. Like, yeah, right now they only have three guys. They have Rap, Higby, and Noteboom. Whereas the Bengals, they had to put Tate on injured reserve. Oh, he won't be activated from IR. They had a chance of bringing Auden Tate back. But they have Uzama. They also have Tapua, Sample, and Morgan listed. So it's kind of a wash. But Raiders, yeah. I'm hoping it's a good game. It has the potential to be a really entertaining shootout.
Yeah.
I'm just worried it's more likely to end up being a blowout in the Rams' favor.
Yeah. But I do think. So I got a little wild scenario, I guess, for you, because of how both teams have kind of ran their games here. But I could see the Rams come out to an early lead, relax, and the Bengals come back and win, because the Bengals have been doing that basically throughout the postseason.
Yeah. I mean,
and the Rams are kind of notorious for relaxing and being overconfident in the second half. Almost happened against Tampa.
So I think the thing that'll make that hard is even with them relaxing, I would say that the Rams are the best defense they have faced easily. Like, I mean, yeah, the Titans got 9 sacks on them, but the Titans weren't exactly like, one of the top, like everyone's like, yeah, they are one of the top defenses. They were good defense. They were solid, but people weren't looking at them the same way, especially when it came to pressure as the Niners, as Tampa, as the Rams. And they also have the solid back end. And so that's why it's going to be interesting to see if they can actually stage a comeback against a good defense. That's not to say they can't. It's just, I mean, I also now that I'm looking at it, so they played the Ravens and the Broncos. I mean, so honestly, the Niners might be one of the best defenses they played is when they played you guys and lost in week 14, 13, whatever that was.
Yeah. And I mean, that took us all the way to overtime.
Mm-hmm. Whereas, the Rams, if, you look at, okay, they've had to go through some pretty good defense. They had to go through you guys 3 times.
Yeah.
They had to go on the road against the Bucs. Did they actually play the Titans? No, they didn't play the Titans.
No.
Oh, no, they did. They lost the Titans.
Yeah.
That was middle of the season. So it's, yeah. And also I do have to wonder how a part of me feels like, not necessarily that they're more experienced. It's a big, because, this is Stafford's first Super Bowl. It's Burrow's. But it does, I would think that Stafford is more prepared for this moment than Burrow is.
I would hope so. I would hope that a lot of their team is more prepared because a lot of them are veterans, like a minimum of 3 to 4 years in the league. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they should be more prepared for this big time game. A lot of them have been to the Super Bowl before too.
Yeah.
They made it. I think was that in 2019? No, that was Niners.
2018, I believe it was. Yeah.
So you have guys who've experienced it before, so yeah, they should be ready and not let it overtake.
And also, that was against, I think, a much better defense than they're going to face this time around too. That was a really, really good defense, and also like a Hall of Fame quarterback. It's and I think another thing that's going to be interesting is with both Burrow and Chase, is it's almost like a Trevor Lawrence effect, where you look at their, Burrow went through last year, but he was hurt. He wasn't actually playing. You really look at their championship season at LSU, it's kind of like, when you have a load of Bama team just plowing through people. This is a lot different. You're not going to have that huge talent disparity. It's going to be a lot harder for them to just really run over. And how can they handle that sort of bursty? Especially in this big game where they're going against a team that has just marched through 3 really good teams.
Yeah, and I don't know, from what I've seen of articles written on Burrow, it sounds like he's up for it. He's not really someone to get flustered and be, the moment's too big. He seems to be able to rise to the occasion and keep a level head about it. If the dude can get sacked like 9 times and win a game, like, I'm sure he could do it again as long as he doesn't get hurt. But
yeah, I don't know, because it's one thing to be able to rise to the occasion when you are still finding success, because even though they were getting sacked, they were still moving the ball. What happens if you're in that moment, but you are just getting absolutely blown up? That's what I'm wondering is, if they do just get run over in the first half and he's gotten sacked like, 6 times, thrown a couple picks, they're down by, 3 scores. How does he handle that adversity? Because I'm not really sure he's necessarily had to in a big stage.
Yeah.
And so that's really the thing, is also it's if he can't handle that, even with all the other playmakers, they need Burrow to be doing his thing.
They need to be on point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see this game, especially because we're going to see either the Bengals get their first ring or Stafford get his first ring. Because I know that's the only storyline of the Rams you're okay with. That's the rest of you don't care.
I mean, basically, like if they get him, like, okay, cool, Weddle gets a ring and Stafford, cool. But I don't know. I feel like it'd be a bigger deal for Cincinnati to get a ring because it's the city and the team, and they haven't won one.
Yeah, but also the other reason why I hope Stafford gets his ring is I don't see the Bengals absolutely collapsing. They seem like they have enough of a foundation there that they're still going to be in the hunt for the next few years, especially with, like, the Steelers really on the decline. The Ravens have been kind of shaky, and the Browns have fallen apart. Whereas the Rams, this is it. This is your shot, and if you don't pull it off, they're not going to be able to get any more pieces. They're going to start losing guys. And even that is like, how many more years can Stafford even physically play?
Yeah. Because at that point, you have Kupp. You got to, do you want to re-sign Beckham? You have Woods, but he's coming back from, I can't remember if it's ACL or MCL, but I know it's a major injury he has.
Yeah.
Like, so you got him coming back. Jefferson's young, which is good for you. And he's a really good speedy receiver, but he's also gotten really quiet. So, like, on offense, don't know what's going to happen there. You're going to have to spend big bucks on defense to keep guys there.
Another thing I'm curious about is because this is another thing. It's like, so you're looking at their O-line. Okay, they have some young guys on their O-line, but you also, like, Whitworth
probably going to retire.
Yeah, like the fact that he's still starting at 40 is, like, it's like I said, that to me is far more impressive than what Brady was doing at 44, because
You're in the trenches.
Yeah. Like, making it 38 as an alignment is
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, impressive. So to be able to maintain that much mass too, like,
oh yeah.
not
Yeah,
just
like,
be like, my knees are non-existent. Like,
I can't imagine the amount of knee pain that guy already deals with. but again, that plays into the whole, that team is going to fall apart real quick. They have just they don't have the ability, and also it's okay. Whitworth's 40, Stafford's 33, Von Miller's 32, Donald's 30, Woods is 29, OBJ is 29. Another one of their O-line starters, Havestein, is 29. Leonard Floyd is 29. Cup's 28. So, Higbee's 28. How many of their starters did I just list right there that are 28 to 30?
Yeah, that's all of them.
Yeah. So
28 or older.
That's the other reason why I'm really pulling for Stafford, is because it just does feel like this is his last shot. Easily. Whereas Burrow's going to have probably at least one more chance, I feel.
Yeah.
And especially since you guys are turning the corner, as the Rams fall apart, that just opens up a nice big void for you guys. Just take over.
Yeah. Hopefully the Cardinals keep imploding, because apparently ownership's really mad there. And I don't know what to get from Kingsbury, because I feel like he made so much progress during the season and like had them move in, and then just regressed hard at the end of the season, and it, like, whatever he was doing with his game planning. And then Seattle's just going to implode. So
if Kingsbury doesn't play his cards right next year, I could see them moving on afterwards.
Yeah.
Carroll is another big one, because I still think he's going to try another year, maybe 2. But if it still feels like he has a long rebuild, I think either he gets let go or he goes somewhere else. So mentioning the organization made me remember another big piece of news is apparently the Broncos are officially back up for sale. So I'm curious how that influences things for them.
Yeah, I mean, last I heard, the Mannings, not just Peyton, but the Mannings as a family were also getting additional investors to buy it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the one that people are really wondering about, because the last time there was talks about them being up for sale, one of the names that kept coming up as someone who was showing interest was our supreme rich overlord himself, Mr. Jeff Bezos.
I could see him do it.
Oh, yeah. And if
it'd be just to own it.
Yeah.
But I
hope not, because
it'd be bad for the league. Personally,
it'd be bad for a lot of things. The ripple effects of him owning a team, either as an individual or Amazon,
that's not
scary.
It's like, I feel like there should be almost an entrance exam to should you own an NFL team, because if he's just like, it's gonna make me money, no, you gotta know at least some of the sport, care about it, so that you can at least put together an organization.
It's unfortunate that ship sailed. It's the
Jaguars
and the Heinzes, all those, like, those are a dying breed.
Yep.
It's,
and then
honestly, I would not be surprised if in another few decades, even the Packers might start seeing their public ownership situation at least alter, because it really does seem like that is the direction the league is heading. Away from like the long-established, long-time owners to like corporate sponsors, rich buy a team. And if that happens, that's where things have changed, because the Packers are starting to see something like that.
Yeah, it'd be long gone. Those families that have kept the teams, or even those who open it up to public trading and like partial shares or partial ownership, they still maintain control and or work as a community, but also keep in mind what's best interest for the team to win. Not
Yeah.
we just care about butts in the seats and money.
Yeah. Yeah. On that happy note, I was sorry that I was expecting it to be such a downer topic right there.
I know. I'm like, oh,
Got
that's
dark.
impressive.
What can I say? I know how to bring people
All
down.
Bezos. Yeah.
Well, now we're into that weird slow week.
Yep. But I mean, I'll think this will give a quick pick. I want the Bengals to win. They have the tools to win, and again, that's combination of I don't want to see the Rams win, and Cincinnati hasn't won a ring. I think it'd be cool to see them get one, being one of those teams that hasn't got one. I prefer to see that over the Rams, but realistically, I do expect the Rams to win.
Yeah. I am the same way where I think the Rams will win. However, there are two caveats I have for that statement. Is one, if the Bengals can find a way to, essentially do what the Rams did to the Niners to keep that front four from being able to just constantly rush Burrow. You don't have to play the edges and do stuff like that or, run side to side. Then I could see them winning. The other caveat to that I see, and this is just me playing the historical, statistics, is, yes, Tampa was the first home team to win a Super Bowl in their home stadium. The Rams, well, they're the home stadium. They're technically the away team, but they're a home team. The odds tell me that the chance of us getting two home team Super Bowl winners in a row aren't likely. But with that said, the last 2 years, this year especially, a lot of those long-term statistical trends have really just broken down. So I'm not saying you should use that as like, oh, well, there you go. Here you have it. Bengals win.
Yeah.
But it is a caveat to my pick. I do think, though, that I just don't think the Bengals will be able to overcome that pass rush.
Yeah.
So I'm going with Rams.
Yeah, I think that's my big probably gonna make a difference factor. Like the Bengals have been Swiss cheese up until this point, and that's not gonna stop.
Yeah.
And this is an even better pass rush.
How did we do with our picks last week? Because I honestly don't remember who I picked last weekend.
I think you were 2-0 because we both went with Bengals. We went with the heart pick on the Bengals.
Okay, but then you did the Niners and I did the Rams.
I did the homer pick. You with the Rams.
Which that wasn't a bad pick, especially with how that game went down.
Yeah, I feel like it was a coin toss. So I'm like, I might as well just go with.
Almost was. Well, hopefully this one doesn't end up being a coin toss. I'm tired of seeing the coin get involved in these games.
Yeah. Hopefully it's as long as it's a good game, we have good food.
That's all one can ask for at this point. As a Niners fan, especially.
If you're a fan of not either team in the Super Bowl.
I mean that too. Yeah. On that happy note, eat well.
Happy note.
Eating's a good note.